In this walkthrough, we're going to go ahead and look at the content search web part. I have up a SharePoint Online site. This is just a blank page right now. So we want to go ahead and add a content search web part. We will click on the gear and go ahead and edit a page. Let's go down and we're going to add a web part. So the web part we're going to add, it's under the content rollup. And this is new to SharePoint 2013 and then is going to be found in 2016 as well as SharePoint Align. It's the content search. That is our content search web part. So all we have to do is click add, and that will go ahead and add our content search web part to the page. Now by default it's just running a default query and it's using very basic display templates, which we will get into later. But let's go ahead and edit the properties so we can see what's going on here. One of the first things we'd want to do is we would want to change the query. And we'll look at the query builder here in a second. We also can show how many items we might want to display. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to increase this to 20 because I want to have a lot more. The next section down is the display templates. There are two types of display templates. There's the control template, which is used once per result. And then there's the item template, which is used once per item. And we can go into display templates at a later point. We can say that we might not want to show anything if there are no results. So that'd be like no errors, no nothing. We have two major sections under that. There's the property mappings. And this is an important distinction between the content search web part and the search results web part, where a content search web part is going to, the item template provided by the content search web part will have associated with it different variables that can be set to specific managed properties, the results that are actually coming back from search. And with the content search web part, you can change this on the fly. And I'm going to try this because the content that we're going to be bringing back is going to be using a new managed property for our image. And if we wanted to bring that back, we could go ahead and do that here. So we'll look at that in a little bit. There's then some also general settings that you can set up if you want. The final three tabs are just your standard appearance, layout, and advanced for any given web part. It's your general web part stuff. So let's go look at the query builder now. Now there is the basic query builder that you can just take a general query, and so there's different queries that are created for us by SharePoint that are just simple queries that we can pull out that will pull from your search service application, and we'll just grab data and it would show it to you. Let's say you can say that you want it restricted to this site or maybe a specific URL or something, like we only wanted results pulled from our specific URL, which we could do that here. So we can say we only want results in our URL, and we'll see that all of the results coming back now are actually from that. We could also say that we want other stuff restricted by a certain tag or whatnot. Now I have found though that most of us are going to go into the advanced mode where we could really create our own query. So let's go ahead and do that. Within our advanced mode, we can now say, hey, we really want specific things to happen here. We can select where we want the queries to come from. This is the primary result sources that are available to us, which is really powerful. So you can filter this by just people, or you can have the general result source. Within on-prem, you can add even more power here because you could create lots of very specific result sources. So it'd be very easy to just grab from a result source the kind of results that you want. On the left-hand side is some keyword filters. Now, what these two do, these two major boxes do, is they're going to help you build this query here down below. If you knew you had a search box and you wanted to pull a query from the search box, you could just add that. And down here at the query text, you'll see that SharePoint automatically adds a field for you, and SharePoint kind of helps manipulate this stuff. Now, one of the things we want to do is we want to say, hey, okay, it's fine that the path has been set for us. We like that. So we're only going to look for results within this specific site collection. We don't really care about this document is true, but what I want to do is I want to filter this by something else, by a managed property. So if we click on property filter, we can look at all the managed properties that are available to us, and I could show them all if I wanted, but I don't really care about all. What I care about is the content type. So I'm going to select content type, and I'm going to select contains, and now I want to say what content type I want to pull from in this example. So my content type isn't here, so I'm going to click on show all content types, and when I click on it again, the list is reloaded. But if I scroll down, I find that there's a content type I created called Pixel property, and I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to click add a property, and you can see that my property gets added here. Now if I test the query, I get these results back that are very different than I got before. But these are all content pages that are tied to the content type of Pixel property. Now, one thing you might have thought you could have done is said, well, I actually know the content type. I want it to start with Pixel property. And I could do that and it would get added for me. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this other content type, and I'm going to click test query. What we're going to find happen is nothing is returned. So what's supposed to be happening here is it's saying, well, content type ID equals this value followed by anything else. And that doesn't seem to work very well. So my experience is contains, which is a colon, not an equal, actually gives us the results that we want. So if I click OK and I scroll down and I click OK, we'll eventually see that my results that come out are of just the pages, and they link to the pages of those content pages that are tied to that content type ID. Now I told you before that I want to be able to change these images to map to a site column that a managed property, in fact, that's being returned by these different results. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this page again. I'm going to edit the web part, and I'm going to go to that other section I told you about, which is the property mapping. Now if I select property mapping and say change the mapping of the managed properties and the picture URL, I can go ahead and change that here to say, oh, well, I know I actually want it to be a different managed property that's being returned. Now I happen to know this. I mean, this is a really long list, isn't it? There is a managed property that I created called the property image rollup OWS image. So if I select that managed property to now be customized to be in the picture URL, I can go ahead and make a nice little change to this so that when the search results, the little container that holds this little gray box is now going to start loading my specific images instead. And this is something that is unique to the content search web part that the search results web part doesn't allow. So it allowed me, a content author who doesn't have access to SharePoint Designer or anything, to use a predefined display template to change the managed properties values that are going to get returned and placed into certain variables or certain values within a display template. So that's kind of the quick overview of the content search web part, and in particular the query builder, and then we looked at modifying managed properties that are going to get used by the rendering engine, in this case the display templates.